Hello everybody, I am Jack from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and if you guys are looking for the latest PTCGO codes, including Champion's Path and Darkness Ablaze, make sure you check out the Potown store, where you can use the code OmniPoke to get a 5% discount on your order. Today, I'm doing the first sort of summary of the Back to Basics account, my new account where I'm not using any PTCGO codes at all. Each week I said I'd give a bit of a summary as to what's happened on the streams, where the account is at the moment. This one will be a pretty short one because I've only had 2 streams and we haven't done any trading or anything. We've done a little bit of opening, but not really much. And then after this quick summary, it's only going to be a couple of minutes, I will include the footage from Thursday's stream where we talked about which theme decks to, what's good in each theme deck, that kind of thing. And each week I'll be doing this. On Thursday's streams, I'll be having a little segment, a bit of a discussion about, tips and tricks, what to buy, what to look for in trades, things like that. And this week it will be including looking at all of the decks that are standard legal, or the theme decks that are standard legal, and picking the, saying which I think is the best and which ones I think you guys should pick up. So yeah. Kicking things off though, like I say, not much has changed with the account. We opened a few packs this week and we did get a couple of cool pulls. Notable cards from what I can remember. The first was a Cinccino. I think Cinccino is actually going to be one of the engines I try and build around in the early stages of this account, just because it's versatile, it's useful in so many different decks. I'm pretty sure it's one of the best engines for new accounts at least. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be going with some kind of Cinccino engine in my early decks. We did grab ourselves a full art Flygon. Obviously none of this is tradable. Currently we don't have any tradable packs, so none of this stuff is actually tradable, but some of these cards may be cards that could be ones that we look to build around in the early stages of our account, just so that we're not investing in a load of different stuff. Maybe it's we can scrape together a couple of sort of mediocre cards, things like Flygon, and build something that can at least get us some tournament rep and start getting us some packs. So yeah, Garbodor is a fairly playable card. Worth picking up one of those. Well, we happen to pick up one of those, and could see some fringe play. Hooper is a very playable card in all honesty, and this will definitely be going into a lot of my decks in the early progression of this series. It's a completely colourless attacker, so you like to see that in attackers, because that means you can splash them into any deck at all. And Evil Admonition doing 10 plus 20 for each of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. That can get pretty strong for 1 energy pretty quickly, so a very efficient attacker that can be splashed into pretty much any deck. So yeah, we're really happy to see that one. A couple of random notable things, this Coughing down here, Lapras. A couple of these cards have seen very niche play. None of them are particularly great, but better worth mentioning than not. And then we did get a couple of GX pulls as well. As we scroll down, I don't think there's anything too relevant here. The biggest cards were... Well, we have the Whimsicott that we kicked the account off with, which is pretty cool. We got this trade-locked gold Zamazenta. Unfortunately, it's trade-locked. I feel like this would be worth a fair few packs. But again, Zamazenta is getting more and more popular in decks, so picking one of these up early randomly is always great. And it's max rarity, so at least we get to show off our max rarity Zamazenta if we can. And finally, we got a Togepi Clefairy and Igglybuff GX. Again, really not great. Not ever seen particularly successful play. There was an interesting list that played this in Expanded that I saw. A very good player. I saw Bradner streaming yesterday as we're recording this. So maybe we can build an expanded deck with this. So that expanded deck was very expensive, so it's unlikely. But yeah, worth noting if nothing else. Maybe we can build towards a fairy deck in the early stages of this account, just because we have 2 fairy Pokemon that perhaps can build something together. So yeah, that's basically where the account is at in terms of individual cards. You may have spotted we also picked up a theme deck though. Spoilers for the upcoming discussion. I went with the Soaring Storm theme deck. I'll explain why a little bit more in depth as to why in the latter part of this video where I'm going to look at every single standard deck. I've already did it. I took a look at them all on stream. But basically, I think this is the strongest deck for the theme deck tournaments, and I think that's the best way to go in the early stages of an account. Basically, you want to be able to grind games as quickly as possible and accrue as many tokens as possible. So whilst this has very, very few cards that are great in standard, there's like 3. Switch, Pokemon Communication, and Pidgeotto are basically the only cards that I've ever seen any standard play. And this Grimer a little bit, but it's not particularly noteworthy. So whilst there's not any great cards or any super useful cards for standard, it's not going to help us build our standard decks immediately. I think this is the deck that will get you the wins the fastest. This or the Charizard deck, both of those decks should get you the wins the fastest, I believe, and I think that's the most important thing when starting out a new account, so you can really get your trainer tokens up as quickly as possible and start buying more theme decks and buying packs and this, that, and the other. So yeah, the deck I chose is Soaring Storm. You'll see why momentarily when I start going through all of the decks, which is a highlight from last week's stream. You can check out the streams every Tuesday and Thursday. I stream Tuesdays just grinding the ladder, grinding some tokens, and Thursday we have some grinding along with some of like a discussion piece. You know, tips and tricks, like I say, and this week was about the best theme decks for a new account, in my opinion. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this quick update, and if you want to find out why I chose Soaring Storm in a little bit more detail, make sure you stick around. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all the support on the series. Make sure you share it with your friends if they're looking to get into the game. Hopefully this will give them lots of insight as to different things they can be looking out for if they're just starting out. And other than that, make sure you check out the streams. Hopefully you enjoy this content upcoming now. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. So, kicking things off with Relentless Flame, let's have a quick look through his deck. So the deck is built around Charizard with this Roaring Resolve ability. Pretty good ability. You can put 2 damage counters onto you and then search your deck for 2 energy and attach them. That's really good for setting up Charizard. Self-sufficient energy attachment is really strong. Then Continuous Blaze Ball has an infinite damage cap and does 130 for 2. So that's this is a fairly good attacker, to be honest, and a good early card to build around. These Farfetch'd aren't great. Nidoqueen isn't great. Queen's Call, letting you search for a Pokemon per turn, is okay, but not ideal. Because of stage 2. Power Lariat doing 10 plus 50 for each evolution on your bench. Again, not awful, not great, but not awful. When you run out of energy, there's a lot of energy in the deck. There's 20 energy in the deck. So yeah, and then Rapidash has Agility, which is basically the point of this Rapidash, is to try and prevent your opponent from doing any damage to you next turn. Trainer-wise, there's not many selling points, as all of these trainers, other than Switch and Brock's Grit, have rotated out of Standard. So, and maybe Fan Club. Is Fan Club legal in Standard? I don't think Fan Club is legal in Standard. Let me double check that. But yeah, essentially the trainers aren't very good because none of them are legal in Standard, and the Pokemon aren't great because none of them are particularly good in Standard. However, this deck is very, very good in Theme Deck format, and yeah, it's not legal in Standard, okay. This deck is very, very good in Theme Deck format, and because of that, kind of bumps its potential up. So, the okay cards, in all honesty, Charizard isn't a terrible deck to build around, a terrible budget deck to build around. So in the okay cards, I am going to put Charizard, and only Charizard, because you're never really going to build Nidoqueen. The deck isn't, the card isn't strong enough, but Charizard is probably a strong enough Pokemon to build around as a budget deck in Standard. So Charizard is probably the only good card in this deck, but the theme deck playability I'm going to put as high because I think it's one of the best theme decks in the game. So, oh, Switch is a good card too. The Switch is a very good card. I should put Switch in the good standard card. Switch is a very good card. But yeah, so other than that, not great. But because over here we've said that the potential playability for this deck is high. I think we should keep this one in mind no matter what. So yeah, that's number 1. Doomsday, you have been missing OmniPoke content. Can you use starter decks and Mental Might for cards of standard use? Mental Might doesn't have any standard cards in it. I believe maybe a couple of trainers that have been reprinted, but in general, no. But all of these decks here will have standard cards in them. This is the earliest deck you can use with standard cards in it. Next up, we have Torrential Cannon. Torrential Cannon. Okay. So, this deck is built around Blastoise using Powerful Squall. Once during a turn, you may look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach any number of Water Energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. So basically, this is your Energy Accelerator. Instead of attaching and taking damage, Blastoise does it based on a little bit of luck, hopefully finding some Water Energy in your prize cards. I should definitely move this over as well. Let me move this over slightly. Like that. Okay. So yeah, it's essentially you're swapping the 2 damage counters for a guaranteed 2 to a bit of luck to try and get potentially up to 6. But as Garchomp has just said in the chat, with 20 energy cards, you have fairly good odds for that. So yeah, pretty good. This deck also contains the Farfetch'd. Instead of the Rapidash, there's a Golduck line with the Swim attack. If any of your opponent's Pokemon have Water Energy attached to them, you can do a 90 snipe instead of doing damage to the active. So pretty interesting attack. Not great, but not awful in all honesty. The big selling point in my eyes is this Pidgeotto line. Airmail, once during your turn, you may look at the top 20 cards of your deck and put them into your hand. Put the other card on the bottom of your deck. This is really, really good for consistency and a really, really good engine to get your budget decks going, in all honesty. So I think Pidgeotto is a very big selling point. And even though Pidgeotto isn't seeing much play at all in Standard at the moment, I'm actually going to put it in the good standard cards section, because Pidgeotto is so versatile in terms of budget decks that I think it's a very, very strong card. As well as that, Blastoise is actually seeing play in a tier 2 archetype or in a tier 2 to 3 archetype, I guess you could say, or has seen play in an archetype based around Mewtwo. It's not great. We now have Frostmoth, which in general is a lot stronger. But again, it's another budget deck that you can build around Blastoise with Blastoise GX. It's not a great deck, but it's seen like fringe play up to tier 3 before, so it's not awful. So it probably goes in the okay standard cards as well. So we're going to put Blastoise over here and Pidgeotto over here, and I believe the trainer lineup is identical. Yes, it is. So we are also going to include Switch in the good standard cards as well. Theme deck playability wise, the deck looks pretty strong in all honesty. Powerful Squall is fairly consistent, which is like setting up multiple attackers quite quickly, so I don't hate that at all. Golduck is also fairly efficient, especially in mirrors. Any Pokemon playing, any decks playing water energy, you have this really cool swim attack. So I think the playability is not high. It's probably good. I don't think it's high. I think good is fair. You also have weakness on Charizard, which doesn't really matter for the Blastoise because you're doing 150 anyway, but it does matter for things like Wartortle and Golduck. So yeah, having weakness on Charizard is pretty cool. So I'm going to put it as good. Good playability. The playability of this deck is good. You want me to put Brock's in good? Brock's in okay. Brock is an okay card. It's not great at all, but It has seen fringe play. We can put Brock in okay standard cards. I guess it's as good as Charizard. Okay, so Torrential Cannon, I actually think for the longevity of decks, Torrential Cannon is a better deck than the Relentless Flame Charizard deck. But I think, like I said, this column here, Theme Deck Playability, I'm going to be more interested in at the moment because we want to be grinding coins as quickly as possible. So better theme decks are going to be better initially for grinding coins. Next up we have Unbroken Bonds Battle Mind, the Battle Mind theme deck. So what do we have in here? We have a Darmanitan that's not great in standard, but pretty efficient in theme deck formats, in all honesty. Mewtwo is a very, very good card in standard. Mind Report letting you put a supporter from the discard pile on top of your deck. We have Eldegoss, which is kind of similar. Eldegoss V lets you just put it straight into the hand, but it's a 2-prize V Pokemon. This is a really, really nice version of that, especially in combination with cards that can draw cards immediately. It means you can basically put it into your hand anyway. So yeah, Mind Report is a very, very good card. Mind Report Mewtwo. So that will definitely go in the good cards. Just here. Next up we have a random Meowth. Oh, there's Cataday stuff. Interesting. We have a Incineroar. Incineroar basically buffs the attack of all of your Pokemon. It's not great at all in standard because it's just too slow. But again, budget decks might be slow enough to make it work. I don't think it's quite good enough to hit the okay standard cards pile though, simply because it doesn't progress your board state. It only progresses your damage, and if you're not... things like Charizard and Blastoise will be setting up multiple attackers so that if one goes down, you're able to attack again, whereas Incineroar is just doing more damage. And whilst that seems really good, you want to have something that's self-sufficient, able to take on, able to set itself up, that kind of thing. So I don't think Incineroar is even able to go into the okay standard cards. It does see play in a deck, in a Chandelier deck. It does see it's exactly a 1 or 2 of copy in that. So maybe that's enough for it to go in standard, but in okay standard cards, but I don't think it quite is, personally. Salazzle is a really nice engine for fire decks. Roast Reveal, you may discard a fire energy from your hand, and if you do, draw 3 cards. As I was saying earlier, really good in combination with Mind Report. So yeah, nice little combo you've got in this deck. Again, Salazzle is another really, really good budget option early on. If you're trying to set up, or if you're trying to build fire decks, this can be a really nice consistency option. So I actually like Salazzle. I think Salazzle is an okay standard card. So yeah, pretty happy putting that one on. I believe we have Fisherman in standard. Let me double check that. Meanwhile, I'm going to put Salazzle on here. It seems like this deck seems mega consistent as well, which is really good for the theme deck playability. Because you know, you want to basically have it be as consistent as possible. I think it just rotated. Yeah, it looks like it. So standard, so it's not legal in standard or any of these cards. Okay, Welder. Welder is a fantastic card. Whoops. And is 100% going in the good standard cards list because Welder does 2 things. One, it attaches extra energy from your hand. You only get 1 energy attachment per turn, so basically you're getting 3 turns worth of energy attachments per turn whenever you use Welder, which is insane. And then you also draw cards. So yeah, Welder is absolutely insane. It's seen huge success in huge amounts of decks. You know, probably like close to 10 to 15 different archetypes have been born basically because of Welder over the past year and a half that it's been in standard. So yeah, Welder is a very, very strong card. Probably outside of Switch, I guess, the best card we've seen so far. So definitely one that's interesting to pick up. What order am I going in? I'm going from the oldest decks to the newest decks. Does this deck only run on Fire Energy? No, it also runs on Psychic Energy as well. For, I guess, the Psyshock attack. So yeah, the deck seems really consistent. It seems fairly powerful in all honesty. Being able to get Welder back is really, really good with Mewtwo. If you're able to set up the Strong Cheer, you can do pretty efficient attacks. 140 for 2 with the Flare Blitz is crazy. I think it's 120. Oh, it's 100 with Psyshock. I'm going to put it as good. I think it seems fairly strong. Consistency engine with the Salazzle probably just makes this deck fairly viable though. So yeah, we're going to go good. Definitely an interesting one. Next up we have Lightning Loop. So this Stunfisk has seen play. Electric Trap, this attack does 30 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. That's not great in all honesty. But it has seen play in the past. Raticate, from an evolution Pokemon. It's not ideal. Fairly efficient in theme deck format though, but not great. Dodrio, like very efficient in theme deck format, but coin flips is a little bit scary. Okay, so the idea behind this deck is Magnetic Circuit Magnezone, letting you attach as often as you like during your turn to your lightning energy, and then going with Discharge, discarding all lightning energy from this Pokemon and doing 50 times number of energy discarded this way. In all honesty, this deck doesn't seem too strong at all. Switch looks like the only strong card in this deck, being perfectly honest. The Magnezone would have been a pretty interesting Pokemon to build around, but unfortunately it's rotated. So I actually think this is the weakest deck we've seen so far, with Switch being the only good one. Lightning Loop, this is called. I think this is a bad theme deck. It seems you have to get your stage 2 up to get going, whereas there's some decks that you don't necessarily, that we're coming to momentarily. Things like Charizard and stuff, you do technically, but they're self-sufficient, whereas Magnezone, you need to get the stage 2 up and then you need to find Pokemon to attach to. And the Pokemon to attach to aren't great. Basically the only one that's consistent is Zeraora, and this is a little bit inconsistent. So yeah, I think this deck is pretty bad. I'd say this one I would avoid if possible. Next up we have Laser Focus. Laser Focus is all based around Malamar and Necrozma. So the Necrozma, again, has also seen play in Standard, but has not seen play since Malamar rotated, so is not a good card for Standard. Laser Focus, let me write this down. What does Silvally do? Heard this deck was good. Avenging Heart, this attacks 50 damage for each prize card. You put 2 for 80 is okay. Not great, but not awful. 3 for 130 is pretty good though. Alert Headbutt is a pretty good attack in theme deck format, because you're not going to see any GX or EX Pokemon. The Malamar line is obviously good for exactly this deck, but not good in Standard because it has rotated. Really nice Arcturus. Cool for family. It's okay. 2 for 60 is pretty good, I guess. Hearing lets you draw a card if this is active, right? Is there any way of retreating? There's one switch. Oh, there's skateboards. The skateboards are pretty good. So you can skateboard in Hearing. It's not awful. Regarding good cards for Standard, there are none. Regarding okay cards for Standard, Oh, there's Switch. I have said Switch is a good card, so yeah. Switch, again. We're getting okay cards for standard. U-turn board and weakness guard are okay. They see Fringe play. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. We've got energy, okay. Yeah, the deck itself, it looks fairly strong. But the only... it looks fairly strong. I think I'm going to go with good. I don't think it's... I should change this to very good, I guess. I don't think it's very good, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good deck. It's probably the worst out of these three, but I think Necrozma is a fairly efficient attacker, and Silvally is a fairly efficient attacker. Should be fairly consistent as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 draw supporters. I'm going to go with good. But again, one of the weaker cards, probably the second weakest card deck we've seen so far. On to Soaring Storm. Now this is a good deck. Okay. So this deck is all about Hurricane Charge. Hurricane Charge lets you attach energy from your hand to your Pokemon per turn, which is really good considering we're running a load of energy. You have the Pidgeotto line to back it up for consistency, which is really good. You have a Alolan Grimer, which is actually an okay card in Standard right now. Energy Grounding Lantern is rotated, but it's fairly good in this format because you can do variable damage with it, and you don't need to attach to it. It just has the ability that lets it attach energy when your Pokemon get knocked out, which is pretty good. And the Tornado Cinderace combo is really, really strong in this deck. So, I think this is another very good theme deck for the theme deck format. So we're going to pop in very good for theme deck playability. In terms of standard, what good cards are in cards are in standard that are good? We have Switch and we have Pokemon Communication, both very good cards in standard. And we have Pidgeotto. I would say they're the three good cards for standard. And I would say Grimer is an okay card for standard. So we're going to go Switch, Pokemon Communication, Pidgeotto, and Alolan Grimer. Okay, so this actually looks better on paper than the Charizard deck, but I don't know what would win out of Charizard and this. So that's something that we'll just have to probably take the coin flip on. We'll probably end up buying Charizard or Dragonite and seeing which one seems to be better. This deck owns Charizard with a Thunderous start, but Charizard is better overall. Dragonite beats Charizard in most matchups. Okay, so it looks like these two decks are the two decks to be looking at. I've heard very good things about this next one though. Towering Heights. Is the next deck. Okay, so Towering Heights is a Groudon deck. Groudon attaches energy from the hand. That's not bad. That can be a turn 1 attack. It's pretty good. Trembling Ground. Can't use Trembling Ground during your next turn. Okay. Bench Barrier Mew is a very, very strong card. Bulldoze lets you tutor a card to the top. Okay. Is there any way of... Wow, that Palpitoad's pretty strong. 1 for 60. And then the big attacker is Garchomp with Avenging Aura. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, this Pokemon's attacks do 80 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So basically you're knocking out anything in the Theme Deck format if you have Avenging Aura active, which is pretty good. This deck seems very, very strong overall. Again, the only great cards here seem to be Switch and Pokemon Communication. Oh, and Mew. Okay, so the good cards in this deck. Switch. Switch, Pokemon Communication, and Mew. Let me go up here and freeze this pane. How do I do this? View. Freeze. 1 row. Okay. Switch, Pokemon Communication, and Mew all seem pretty good. Garchomp is okay, but has no real late game. I can see that, but I think your late game becomes Tremulous first. Which isn't great, considering there's no great acceleration. I guess you have to, like, Drought to Garchomp, Drought to Palpitoad. The deck seems okay. It seems very high rolly. Seems like if you have an early game where Growler doesn't get knocked out and you can attach energy to Seismitoad, you're in a great position. But other than that, it seems a little bit tough. Are there any way to draw cards? Okay. I think I'm going to put good. This deck seems good, not great. In terms of okay standard cards, I'm going to add in Throw. Throw has seen a little bit of success recently. And can be combined with a couple of things to make a really budget option for dealing with a couple of key standard Pokemon. So Throw is going to make it into the okay standard cards section. Theme Deck Playability, I'm going to go with good. I don't think it's as good as Charizard or Dragonite, but I do think it seems like it's got potential if you can get through the early, if you can get through a couple of stage 2s, to be able to win that way. Throw, Stadium, and Ban Doko's Eternatus says that. Exactly. So Throw doing 120 isn't completely irrelevant. So that's why Throw's gone on the OK standard cards. Next up we have Unseen Depths. And this has some pretty interesting cards. Is your spreadsheet going to be public eventually or just private use? I will probably make this public. I'm going to do a couple of things with it first, and then I will probably make this public and update it every now and again when we get new sets. So this is the Kyogre theme deck. So this is actually from the discard rather than the hand. Pros and cons to that. Is there any way of discarding energy? There's 2 Viridian in here. There's also Roller Skater. Okay. Okay, so this deck has a couple of interesting cards. Viridian for sure is a strong card. Switch, Com. Are there any Pokemon that are particularly strong? Fion is probably now only an okay card. Now we have Boss. Fion was very good a little while ago, but now I think it's just an okay card. This deck has a good matchup against Charizard and decent against Dragonite. Oh, we just got a follow. Snide Kid 11, or 11 I guess that is. Thanks very much for the follow. Really appreciate it. So yeah. Stop your opponent from attacking with 1 energy with Empoleon. Pretty slow though. Bye-bye throw. Discard up 2 cards from your hands. Type the 6 damage for each card you discard this way. That's pretty good. 120 for 2 is very consistent. Your opponent play rock, paper, scissors. Okay, well, good standard cards for sure are Switch, Radiant Forest, and was there one more good standard card? No, there wasn't. I think Fion is an okay standard card. It's not great. Oh, is nuts. Yeah, it seems really good. This seems like quite a strong deck. I think I'm going to put... Again, it doesn't feel quite as strong as the other two. Simply because it's not basic attackers. The biggest thing about the Dragonite deck, in my opinion, is the fact that Tornadus and Thundurus are both basics. That means that you have time... You're putting on pressure with basics to then set up your stage 1s and stage 2s. And that seems really, really strong. Charizard is self-sufficient and searches from the deck, which is one of the best ways of attaching energy. So that's why it gets around that, because it doesn't matter what you do in the early turns, because you can all set it up. That being said, that means Recall is pretty good against the Thundurus and Tornadus. So it feels like it could potentially, if you can get an early Empoleon, it could potentially have a strong matchup against those. Okay, I think I'm going to put this as good. It doesn't seem very good, but it seems pretty... It seems like it can hold its own against some decks for sure. On to the Sword and Shield era. And this is where things are going to get really interesting. Kicking things off with Rillaboom. So these theme decks, in terms of Pokemon, are really underwhelming, I think. They're good in terms of just raw stats. Can I check out Swampert? I will do a very, very brief look at some older decks if you happen to have all the very good standard decks, but it won't be as in-depth as those. So yeah, these cards, raw stats-wise, are better. 190 HP, 180 damage for 4 is crazy good. But the decks on the whole, I think, are a lower consistency, bar one card, and that is Professor's Research. And without a doubt, Professor's Research is the best card in any of these decks combined. And in all honesty, I could see these decks being the ones you pick just for the 3 copies of Professor Research alone, because Research is in every single standard deck, almost, and will be until it rotates. So because of that, whilst I think most of these decks are only very mediocre, the raw stats are attractive enough to make them potentially playable, on top of the fact that you're getting 3 Research, which is crazy good. So, but yeah. This one's focused around Rillaboom. Again, really, really high damage is pretty good. Gossifleur and Eldegoss do pretty cool things. Call for Family is one of the best, or Gossifleur's Call for Family is one of the best Call for Family attacks we've ever seen. Blessings of Fluff, letting you attach energy for free or for 1 energy is pretty good. So this is actually okay. It's not awful. It's not great. But it's not awful. Powerful Needles has actually seen some meme play very recently. But yeah. In terms of good standard cards, what do we have? We have Research. Switch. Great Ball is a really good, standard card. Ordinary Rodders as well. Pokegear as well, in all honesty. I think that's all of them. Are there any other ones? An okay standard cards. There's actually no okay standard cards. They're all pretty bad. Like the Grookey Thwacky line, I guess I can put. But they're not great at all. They're not particularly universal. The issue I have with this deck is basically you're all in on things like Rillaboom and Snorlax, I think. And if your opponent can get through Rillaboom and Snorlax and stuff like that, it seems fairly underpowered. Like 1 for 50 is very efficient, but on a stage 1 with only 100 HP, you're probably going to be getting knocked out by a lot of the stage 2s in this format. Maractus is flippy, but potentially good. The only acceleration the deck has is Eldegoss. So, I think the deck's power level is pretty mediocre. At the end of the day, each theme deck has its own flavour and playstyle. There's even different ways of playing each deck. Personally, play Towering Heights, like playing Expanded Primal Groudon, still using Persimmon, then go for BKOs and stuff, so on your bench. Yeah. The deck is get Eldegoss to set up or lose. Yeah, it feels like that. So I think this deck is pretty mediocre. Next up we have Inteleon. So Inteleon has 160, 1 for 40, 2 for 100, and putting an energy back can actually be pretty good in this kind of format considering there's a lack of acceleration. So that's pretty good. Again, Research is a good card, Catcher is a good card, Gear, Ordinary Rod, Great Ball, E-Switch. So a lot of good trainers in these decks, in all honesty. I think we have all of those. Switch, Great Ball, yes. Ordinary Rod, Pokegear, yes. And we can also add on to the end of this Pokemon Catcher. Though I believe you might start with some Pokemon Catchers on the account. I don't remember. Oh, you're given Pokemon Catchers. So maybe Pokemon Catcher isn't necessarily a great card to... Maybe isn't a card to say is a good standard card to pick up. Because you kind of get them anyway. But yeah. So yeah, the energy acceleration in this deck is seemingly non-existent, basically. There's no acceleration, it's all 1 energy attack per turn. Claw End basically means you're probably knocking everything out if it's already got damage counters. No acceleration, yeah. This feels like basically a worse Kyogre deck. Yeah, I think this deck is pretty bad, to be honest. There's no real acceleration. There's no okay standard cards at all. Arguably the Sobble, but okay, I'll put Sobble in. But the Drizzile isn't good because there's actually a better Drizzile. Energy Switching good. I think Energy Switch is good. Energy Switch is seen in one of the best decks in format right now in ADPZ. And in general, I think Energy Switch has always seen a fairly large amount of play. So yeah, I'm pretty happy putting Energy Switching good. Yeah, there's a better Drizzile. So this Drizzile isn't even particularly good. But again, this deck has more raw stats than the older decks. So I'd say, even though the deck is bad, it's still potentially going to get you wins just because the raw stats are better. Finally, onto Cinderace from base Sword and Shield. Let's kick things off with the trainers as per usual. Research. This deck has Bead or Betty or Bede. I don't know how to say this. Which is not great in all honesty. So the trainer lineup is pretty much the same. 100 for 2 with Inteleon isn't bad. It's not bad, but it's also not great. Said Bead? Okay. Yeah, exactly. When we have Ambipom potentially doing more, I think Ambipom is stronger. So stage 1 it does 20 more damage. You have to discard cards, but that's usually fine. There's synergies. So Cinderace has 170 and does 160, so again, pretty strong. 20 more HP than Charizard, 30 more damage than Charizard. But for the same cost, actually no, for the same cost it's 10 less damage than Charizard. Okay. Slow. It's self-sufficient but slow, so I'd say Cinderace on the whole is worse than Charizard. Is the supporting cast better than the Charizard deck? I don't think so particularly. Cotton Guard isn't great. Dragon Pulse is fairly efficient, but if we're not... for a basic it's actually okay. Double Draw's okay. Ninetales is pretty bad. Okay. I think this deck is actually one of the worst decks you can buy. I'm definitely going to put bad. The trainers are good, of course. I can't put the pre-evolutions in because there's no good Cinderace in standard. As you've said, Kanga, yeah, there's no good Cinderace in standard. So I'd say this is actually the worst of the 3 Sword and Shield decks. Next up we have Zation. So let's do our usual first scout for good cards in standard. Switch, Great Ball, Metal Saucer, Catcher, Research. Okay. Switch, Great Ball, Metal Saucer, Pokemon, Catcher. Research. I'm actually going to put Pokemon Catcher in the OK standard cards. Along with Sonia. Sonia is very slow, but it has seen success in the past. Is there anywhere else where we've got Pokemon Catcher? I don't think so. Dan in the good. Unfortunately, Dan is not a good card. So this deck's all about Zation. 120 for 3. Flip a coin if it goes to discard 2 energy. Not great, in all honesty. We have Galerion Berserker. Actually doing 240 with Claw Dagger. But again, coin flips are never great in this game. Starts 31 damage for each. That's not ideal. Some Pheasant Line seems pretty bad as well. Daunt is probably the best attack in this deck, to be honest. In general, this deck seems really bad. The only super good attacker I actually think is Unpheasant. Everything else is fairly mediocre. So yeah, I think this is a pretty bad deck. Zamazenta is the next one. Okay. So I'm pretty sure they have the exact same train account. Oh, there's no catches, there's potions in this one. Are there Sonias in this one as well? There are Sonias in this one. Super good attacker in quotations. So is this deck any better than the Zation deck? Let's take a look. Guard press. Okay, I actually think that's worse than Zation. Oh, Duraludon is a good card. We should add Duraludon here. Duraludon is seen in metal decks to play around Decidueye. So yeah, Duraludon is actually a good card here. Iron Wings. Iron Wings is pretty obnoxious, in all honesty. Use your benched Pawniard. You only get 3. You don't even get the full 4 Pawniard. So most of this can do 90. 90 for 1 is very good, but it's fairly inconsistent. It's going to be based on retreat. You move all energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. Such a bad good card, though. I think this is slightly better. This is slightly better than the Zation deck, but I still think it's pretty bad. Duraludon is just using AP. I guess we can put Duraludon in OK. Because it's only used in 1 or 2 decks, whereas these cards are used in a lot of decks. So yeah, sure, I agree. Okay, so yeah, Zamazenta still feels like a pretty bad deck. Next up we have the latest one, Galerion Darmanitan. You think your deck's mediocre? I think Zam is mediocre. It seems very, very mediocre. This deck has a Kanga in it. It does indeed. I'm going to put it as bad. I don't think it's a particularly good investment. I think so far out of the Sword and Shield decks, it actually seems like the Rillaboom deck is the best one to invest in. But yeah, let's take a look at Galerion Darmanitan. First things first, the trainers. So Sonia is the only trainer, and it looks like probably the only Pokemon. Oh no, Suicune's probably okay. Okay, well Sonia's going in here. However, there's some very good cards in this deck. So we've got the Research as usual. Got Birdkeeper, which is a very good card. So we've got Birdkeeper. Switch and Great Ball. Turbo Patch. All of these are great cards. And Capacious Bucket. Is it a good card or is it an okay card? I'm probably going to put it in okay. It's used in Frostmoth decks exclusively. And Frostmoth is like a tier 2 archetype at the moment. But it's used in only Frostmoth decks. So it doesn't give you much flexibility. So I think it's actually just an okay card. Bucket. The deck in general. Stage 1 is okay. Frozen Heat is pretty interesting. One shot's a Charizard. Hey Laura. It's got one of my least favorite Pokemon in this deck. Pelipper. Moving energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. 3-100 is okay. I actually really like this Suicune card. I think Suicune could potentially be in the OK standard cards in all honesty, but I'm not going to put it in just because it actually hasn't seen any play yet. I think it could do one day though. The deck seems fairly slow. It's Turbo Patch being the only acceleration. I think I'm going to put it as mediocre. It's water type and it's all stage 1 based, which is really good. Things like Suicune can preserve energy. Suicune was in Towards and Tail and Frostman list. Oh, was it? I thought you played Lapras. I thought you played the Lapras... Not the Lapras V, the Lapras... The other Lapras. Oh, well there you go then. Suicune, good card. I'm going to put this in mediocre. This deck actually seems okay. You've got type coverage, or not that you're weak to grass in a lot of scenarios, but you've got type coverage. Maybe it probably was Suicune. It's been a while since I've looked at those lists in all honesty. I think this deck seems mediocre. Let's go mediocre. This deck actually seems like a pretty good investment. You get 2 Turbo Patch and 2 Research. 2 Turbo Patch, 2 Research, 2 Birdkeeper, 2 Great Ball. This deck actually seems decent. And finally, Galerion Surfetched. So, first things first, they have the same... have the same train account, so we can do this. I don't think there's any Pokemon here that are good in standard. No. Powdon, Triple Smash. That was the same as the Galarian Berserker that didn't seem great. This deck has worse energy acceleration as well. Dugtrio is fairly efficient in all honesty. My guess was right. Busted. I knew it. All family, 2 basics. Okay. Power Press, 180 for 5. On a basic, that's fairly strong, but I don't know how you're getting 5 energy on. I guess you're turbo patching. These decks really do not have any acceleration anymore, do they? Damn. This seems like a worse fighting deck than the Groudon fighting deck. Seems mediocre. Oh, 2 Bead as well. No good acceleration. How about that? Can we settle on that? Okay. Again, this deck seems fairly mediocre, but I think it's worse than the Towering Heights deck. A bit bad. Okay, and that's all the decks in standard. I will do a brief run through of some of the other decks. Kicking things off with this one. Stormcaller. Towering Heights is Groudon. Yeah. Come on, computer. You can do it. I believe in you. You can open this non-standard deck list. Substriker's pretty cool. Naganadale's pretty cool, to be honest. Oh, we got yeeted off. The reason Charizard and Dragonite are the best decks is because of their acceleration. Exactly. Energy acceleration is very, very important. I don't know why we got kicked off of the servers there. That's pretty sad. So yeah, this one seems Zebstrike is okay, Split Bomb is okay, but not great. I'm pretty sure Nagano's okay. Doesn't seem too strong though. Oh, come on, computer. I really need to invest in a new PC, especially if I want to go or want to do more streaming, I think. Oh, there's a Houndoom in this deck. Bastard. There's an Ultra Ball in this deck. Interesting. There's a huge variety of supporters in here. Crazy. I had a look at this deck and it didn't seem too strong. Split energy cost is pretty gross, but not awful. You get a Guru in this deck though, Bog. This deck seems very strong, this Swampert deck. Yeah, Swampert seems pretty good. Are there any other Pokemon that I wanted to take a look at? I think as soon as you get down here, everything's just been outclassed. So yeah, let's take a look. Let's take one final look at our list. Let me do this. So we have, we can make these a little bit wider. Okay, so here's the decks. The very good ones are here. Let's label them with colors, bright green. The good ones are going to be a less bright green. The mediocre ones are going to be yellow, and the bad ones are going to be red. So, as we expected, these two are the best ones. So we're going to be picking either Relentless Flame or Soaring Storm. We kind of knew that was going to happen, but we wanted to check. We wanted to just check that nothing had been missed. So I'd say these two decks are the two that you want to buy first. This Charizard gives you a budget deck to build around, but the Soaring Storm deck gives you more versatile cards to use. Cards that can be used in multiple decks. And I think because of that, I'm going to pick Soaring Storm first. in my opinion. I think both are fairly even in terms of power level. I don't know which is favoured. We've seen people say both. Like, one's favoured and then the other is favoured. Pickle Rick Szechuan, welcome to the team. Thank you very much for the follow. So, personal preference, I think I'm going to go with the Soaring Storm deck. The next deck I buy will probably be Relentless Flame. And then from there, someone's just said it, the next deck I buy will, in all honesty, probably be the Rillaboom deck. Either the Rillaboom and or the Galerion Darmanitan deck, because they contain a lot of very good cards in Standard. So yeah, my advice would be Relentless Flame and Soaring Storm first, and then Rillaboom and Galerion Darmanitan afterwards. I'll probably do a bit of a video going a bit more in depth on that, but for anyone that's in the chat now, just so you're aware, my first pick will be Soaring Storm, then Relentless Flame, then Rillaboom, then Galerion Darmanitan. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Let me get rid of this. Hingers22, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the team. Let me get rid of this as well. And let me bring this back. And let's make our first purchase. Bratalion, thank you very much. Went through my cards from my childhood. Had a Charizard, Skyrish, Secret Rare, Holo, but a lot of scratches. In all honesty, it's probably still worth a fair amount. So check it out. Hopefully you can find some good value there. Don't misclick and buy Inteleon. No. So we're going to go with Soaring Storm, redeem, confirm. We get this super cool Dragonite coin. These cards aren't tradable, right? No, they're not tradable. How's the account going? Busted. We've purchased our first theme deck, guys. How exciting.